I tell myself, you know what? You need to stop. What are you feeling right now? Like, what do you need? Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling overwhelmed? I give myself permission because I feel that it's giving me the opportunity to also set an example for the young women in my house. I think overall, by allowing myself to pause, it makes me a better wife. It makes me a better mom. It makes me a better accountant for my clients. It makes me a better leader for those in my office. It makes me a better colleague to the people that I work with. So for me, it's like a have to. Like, I have to allow myself to do that.
Welcome back to the Balance Boldly podcast for ambitious women in business and a few brave men. I'm your host, Naketa Thigpen, balance and relationship advisor, partnering with you to change the narrative so we can amplify intimacy within and across your relationships, and you can have the freedom, flexibility, and confidence to thrive in work life and in love. My personal mission for this and every episode of the Balance Boldly podcast is to serve you with the tools you need for moving beyond just barely surviving the burnout of work and life, over those narrow hills of imposter syndrome, and through the barriers preventing you from being and doing greater. That is why, my lovelies, I know I sound like something out of a cartoon, but that is why I am so excited for us to continue in season 17. Which the theme of this season, as you know, for those of you who have been following us, is literally about being all in. Everything we do should be all in, which is why you got to be really particular about who you have in your space, what you have in your space, and how much you have on your plate. Otherwise, you got a whole bunch of everything happening and you're not in a space of completion with anything, which causes a whole bunch of stuff that you don't really want in your life. So today, we are going to talk to someone who understands the value of being very clear and very specific about how you manage certain things in your life from a very interesting angle, because many of you are high-level executives, entrepreneurs, business owners, and just out there in the world doing great, amazing, professional level things. So you know why we need to manage our money correctly. Because money does matter. It's not everything, but it sure is something, and it's very important. So today I want to bring together an amazing woman. She is a new friend of mine that I love to pieces, and I'll tell you a little bit about our relationship in a minute. But let me be professional. So my professional hat is on. Kirsten Toler. You hear her laughing? Kirsten Toler. She's a tax senior manager with Friedman LLP Group with over 25 years of combined experience, effectively balanced between public accounting and private industry, focused mainly on client service and tax. She has a diverse background and is known by some of us as a rock star. She's a rock star CPA, a rock star consultant, and a rock star strategist. At least she's been that for me in my life, I'll tell you that much. When she's not spending her time working with clients, loving on her husband, her children, and her family, Kirsten makes room to speak at the Girls Career Institute as a mentor, on the Gail Beerben Writers Women's Leadership Council, and is a subject matter expert panelist for UBS Monetizing Your Life Work program. Kirsten, welcome to the Balance Boldly podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for that. My gosh, I have chills. You're so kind.
And you know I mean it. Oh,
I know you do. I know you do.
When people meet you, they'll be able to understand even more emphatically what your presence does when you walk into a room. You are not, I mean it, and you know I'm not blowing smoke, right? Like, we don't have time for that.
I know. I know. You're my girl. I understand.
Yes, Kirsten is a tall drink of water, okay? Like, when she walks in the room, you physically, her presence is beautiful and statuesque, and she is also highly professional and so energetic just in her facial expressions, let alone in her professionalism. Because you and I have had multiple conversations across the room in some of the vertical exclusive groups that we belong to, as well as one-to-ones out on the side, where your energy just like goes up 10 points when you start to talk about money and numbers and the importance of like doing it the right way. Like, I love that about you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, definitely.
I love it so much. It is. And It shows up in your integrity. So I would love for you to tell everyone who's listening just a little bit about what you do professionally and kind of how you got here.
Oh my, okay. So professionally, I am a CPA. I've been in practice for over 20 years. My path's been a little unusual. I consider myself a unicorn
Mm.
in the world of public accounting because most folks who are in my industry at my level, this is pretty much all they've ever done, and that's great. So
Mm.
their experiences have been, specifically dealing with the public, kind of working through different markets, different client bases, and that's kind of where they come from, and that's wonderful. My background's been a little different. I started out in public right out of college. I worked for a very big accounting firm, and quickly realized that I'm not an auditor. I love people who are auditors. Their brains work in mysterious ways, but my brain does not work like that. And
Yeah.
so I ended up leaving the really big firm, went to a regional firm closer to where I live in South Jersey, and the experience there from a technical perspective was fantastic. We did everything from soup to nuts. And what that meant for me was that I was really given the opportunity to see just how businesses work and how to best service clients, especially in the small to mid-sized business space. Not only that, but I worked with a lot of individuals. And, you know, candidly, while I had some really good leadership in that space as well, in the mid 90s, as a female in public accounting, it wasn't exactly a place where I saw myself being able to continue because I was getting married. At some point, I thought I'll probably have kids. And so at that particular point in my opinion, in the industry, we really hadn't come that far yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up going into what we call private. So it was like an industry. I worked for Cigna Insurance for a couple of years. I did things that were completely not tax related. And then I ended up back in a tax function because I think just at the end of the day, that's where my brain is happy, and that's where I really thrived and really was like a sponge, just learning as much as I could.
Mm.
Ultimately, I ended up moving from Cigna into, I'm going to date myself here, I went to work for Bell Atlantic. And
Oh.
Bell Atlantic, yeah, see? And Bell Atlantic, within a year that I was there, I was in their tax group, they merged with GTE to form Verizon. So I was actually there at the cusp of this big, I mean, seriously, it's this epic change in corporate America where all of a
Yeah.
sudden there's this monolith called Verizon, and everybody knows Verizon now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but in between that time frame, I was no longer working in public accounting, but I missed it. I missed the client facing element as much as I loved the work that I did at
Mm-hmm.
Verizon, and ultimately ended up working in benefit finance within that group. So I saw retirement plans and learned a lot in that space. Um, Once I passed the CPA exam, my husband, who at the time was my fiance, he was going to school for nursing, and he was working as a nursing assistant at a hospital in South Jersey. And he came home one day and he said, "Babe, can you do taxes for like other people?" And I sat there and I thought, "Yeah, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
can,"
Mm-hmm.
because with my CPA license, I could sign a tax return.
Yeah.
And so he had some folks that he was working with who needed a CPA. And so 5 people showed up, and then it was 13 people, and then it was 30 people. And the next thing you know, I had this little fiefdom of my own under the auspice of doing tax work.
Wow.
And so during my journey at Verizon, I had my first child, who's now 17. I ended up working in consulting, where I had my second child, who is now 13. And all in this time frame, I worked 4 days a week because fortunately I had found a space where people kind of respected that work-life balance. I actually
Yeah.
became the poster child at the consulting firm that I worked for because anybody who came in, my managing director would say, "Oh, you need to talk to Kirsten because
Mm-hmm.
she just had a baby and she's doing all these things within the firm, but she still has time at home, and you need to talk to her because she really made it work." Um, so during all of this change and time and things that were happening around me, I had my own practice, which was really cool. So consulting firm moved my job to New York City. I was not moving with the job. And so ultimately, I ended up back with the giant accounting firm that I worked with, but in a tax role.
Yeah.
And it still wasn't the right fit. You know, it was definitely not, the slipper did not fit this Cinderella, that's for sure. I worked with some wonderful people, some very brilliant people, but again, it was kind of like I was feeling my way through, experiencing all these different things and trying to find kind of my home. Like, you
Yeah.
know, I have all this experience. How do I take everything that I've been learning and kind of put it together into something that I know is me
Yeah.
and that I can move forward with all in and
Mm-hmm.
say, here's who I am, and here's how I can add the most value, you know,
Yeah.
throughout my lifespan. How can I do that? And so ultimately, I reconnected with someone I had worked with in a former life in public accounting, who's a partner here at Friedman. And he was kind of with me during my journey with the big accounting firm and connected me with the COO at the time at Friedman, who was kind of really working with me. I had said to myself, I'm going to work on my own. I'm going to take this little thing that I've created and say, you know what, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to do. I'm good at this, and I'm good at, kind of like to quote Jerry Maguire, I'm great in the living room. I'm great meeting with people one on one, kind of in a small space, very intimately, and I felt like that made me stand out as a CPA. There's such an old stereotype of CPAs with the green visor on and kind of sitting hunched, angry, working on tax returns, and that's so not me. While I love that work, I actually do love that technical element of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest piece for me was being able to service others and utilize knowledge that I had to help other people. And so, you know, I'm kind of still feeling my way through. Ultimately, the connection that I had at Friedman was going to help me connect with other, like, smaller sole practitioners
Yeah.
who maybe didn't have a succession plan, maybe were looking for someone to connect with to transition business to. And ultimately, I ended up having a meeting with this person thinking, you know, the auspice of the meeting was going to be a continuation of that type of conversation. And he sat across from me in the office that ended up being my first office at Friedman and said, I have a proposition for you, and I'm about to throw a wrench in some of the things we've been discussing. And
Uh,
at that point, he then said, Friedman is in a transitional period. There are a lot of partners who are, you know, getting to be of retirement age, and they're really looking for like the next generation of partner. And with my soft skills, that was something that was lacking. And so he said, I would really love to bring you in here with the idea of pathing to partner. The caveat was that I had to bring my clients with me. My entire book came with me to Friedman.
got you.
That was a huge leap of faith for me,
Yeah.
because my boss, who was one of my mentors when I worked in consulting, he'd always kind of had like a side gig, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I never really looked at it as a side gig, like it was just part of who I was. But
Yeah.
he always said, "Oh, always keep your clients. It's your retirement plan." And I thought that's kind of a cool concept, not realizing how big it would eventually become for me and kind of trying to hold it all together. You know, while it wasn't impossible, sometimes it was a challenge. I was very,
Yeah.
very fortunate. My husband has been incredibly supportive of me throughout my career. I guess maybe because what he does is so different than what I do as a nurse. You know, he deals with like blood and guts and yucky stuff, and I deal with like numbers and nerdy stuff, and it works. And so, you know, my kids have grown up through tax seasons with mom. Suffice it to say, neither one of them wants to be an accountant, so I don't know if I did a great job. But from the perspective that they kind of see, you know, hey, my mom is a successful female professional,
Yeah.
yet she still has time to come to our soccer games and, you know, our performances and, you know, all the various things that I want to be present for. I've been able to make this work. Sometimes I'm a bit of a trailblazer that way,
Mm-hmm.
because there is still a little bit of the old school, the old guard mentality that runs through my industry.
Yeah, it does.
But now being at Friedman, I can say confidently, um, our one co-managing partner is a female. And recently, Friedman has started these, we call them lunch and learns, but it's basically like a partner series where partners will kind of talk about their journey. And
Mm-hmm.
the first we just had recently, and our two co-managing partners, our tax managing partner is a male, and our audit managing partner is a female. And both of them spoke about their journey. And it was really interesting to hear the female managing partner talk about and very much validating a lot of what I felt as a young woman in this industry,
Yeah.
because there are pressures. There are pressures that, you know, there are a lot of great dads out there, and there are a lot of great dads that I work with who make sure that they're present at their children's events, and they make sure that they identify the true meaning of what we do. It doesn't matter what you do for a living, but it matters what impact you're making.
That's
And
right.
the impact that you most directly make is on the people in your direct space, in your nuclear family. Those are the people that see you every day. Those are
Mm-hmm.
the people that see you when your teeth aren't brushed. Those are the people that see you at your worst and at your best.
That's
And
right.
they love you unconditionally. But at the same time, you have a responsibility to them to ensure that you're giving the same back. And there's just a beauty in being able to be supported like that. And I've been very fortunate in my career to be able to do that. So my from a professional perspective, um, I've learned a lot working at Friedman. I certainly have learned a lot. This past year for me, as you well know, has been a bit of an epiphany.
Mm-hmm.
And I've made some very strategic decisions based on things that just have transpired around me.
Yeah.
And one of those really great strategic decisions is I'm going to be moving to our Philadelphia office as of January 1st. I really think that this opportunity it presents itself. I mean, I'm a technically sound tax person, but in the day of, on the cusp of 2020, there's so much more focus now on emotional intelligence,
Yes, it is.
on ensuring that we are, in tune with the people around us. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the people coming up through my industry, that's their mind space. They don't want to work in an environment where they've got somebody barking at them, what they need to do, how they need to do it. They don't have a say. They don't feel like they're valued. All of these things, you know, need to kind of morph with the new generation that's coming through. And I know confidently now, through everything that I've experienced, that's me.
Yeah.
So I am really happy to be like that champion for the import of taking care of our people, making sure that people understand, yeah, be a good technician. Yeah, take the time to learn things. Questions, I am all in. Tell me how I can help you. But at the same time, ensuring that, we're respecting each other, we're taking care of each other. We want to see people thrive and succeed and get to the next level. And quite honestly, from a selfish perspective, it benefits me when I have really good teams around me.
That's right.
I want good people next to me. I want to walk beside people that care about clients the way I do. Clients are not just a paycheck for me. I really care about the people that I work with, and I want to be able to continue to give and add value in that professional space. And I think honestly, it sets a good example. My children are both girls, two
Mm-hmm.
daughters.
Mm-hmm.
They're both teenagers, so pray for me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no joke. But I want them to see, and I think without them even realizing it, they're growing up in a time and in an environment where
Yeah.
their dad supports their mom. I've always been the majority breadwinner in my house. My
Mm-hmm.
husband was in the Navy when I met him. Got out of the Navy. We were engaged while he was in service. Got out of the Navy. He started going to school on the GI Bill. And so, he was a student for 4 years, in and around the time that we were getting married.
Yeah.
And so, he doesn't have any preconceived notion about what my role is.
Mm-hmm.
We are partners. He supports me. And my girls see that. I mean, we're both a little crazy, so they see that too. But I think it helps them without them even having to think about it. Hopefully, my hope, of course, as a parent, is that moving forward, whatever profession that they choose, whatever they decide to do to give back to the world, that they find people around them that will support them.
Yeah.
And you kiss a few frogs along the way, but at the end of the day, I just think that for us to be good at what we do, we have to be well supported, and we have to care and support the people around us.
Absolutely. You are walking your talk. Like, this is real work life and love, which is why we don't just say work life and balance. And balance is crucial. You know, it matters. It's freaking in the title of my company, Think Pro Balance and Relationship Management, right? But it's further than that. It's beyond just balance. It's about the love. Your first ministry is your family. Like those are the people that see you when you haven't put moisturizer on your skin or conditioner in your hair, right? Like to your point, like they see you at your worst and hopefully they benefit from your best. And you're walking that talk on a regular basis, which allows you to show up at work and do even greater things and have a little bit more of a bandwidth and capacity for just some of the normal life nonsense that kind of comes along when you're driving from Jersey to Philly or whatever might happen. You have a little bit more bandwidth for your in terms of your compassion because life is good for you at home and it's really good for you at work, and you created this reality that you're in, which I think is why you're all in, is you're creating your all in experience and you're shaping and reshaping and navigating some of the things that you didn't necessarily understand in the beginning, but you've created this new dynamic for yourself, which I love on so many levels. So I have to ask you, with all that you have going on, how do you, Kirsten Toler, give yourself permission to pause?
Well, so I think in my head, first of all, I'm a huge fan of mindfulness. And one of our networking friends, I'll name drop, Chantel Fitzgerald.
Yes.
She has taught me a lot. I think so. I think I've learned a lot. Like I said, this year's been a giant epiphany for me. I'm an empath, and that's very unusual, I think, when you're kind of dealing in business. But I think it makes for good client service foundation. And so
we're empath sisters, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, yes, we are. Oh, yes, we are. What I find is that number one, it makes me a better person. So I tell myself, it's almost like a task. I tell myself, you know what, you need to stop. What are you feeling right now? Like, what do you need? Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling overwhelmed? I give myself permission because I feel that it's giving me the opportunity to also set an example for the young women in my house. It also makes me, I think overall, by allowing myself to pause, it makes me a better wife. It makes me a better mom. It makes me a better accountant for my clients. It makes me a better leader for those in my office. It makes me a better colleague to the people that I work with. So for me, it's like a have to. Like I have to allow myself to do that. It's almost not even like it's not an option for me. And I think too, with all the stress, my job can be incredibly stressful. Having two children can be incredibly stressful with all their activities, and then trying to find time to connect with my husband. What do we like? We need time together. We need to do things together. And of course, with kids that morphs and changes. But how do we connect? And without giving myself that permission, I just think all around I'm gonna fail at everything that's important to me. So I have to allow myself to do that.
I love that you made it non-negotiable. And for me, it's the same. It's the same exact thing. Sometimes it's only 5 minutes. Sometimes it's 2 minutes if it's in a really full moon type of day. And sometimes it's 6 week self-lovecation. It really just depends on what I'm able to do.
Exactly. And not to feel guilty about it.
Exactly.
I think there's enough stuff out there that if we truly, and I'm annoyingly a glass half full person, and so I don't want to allow. I know, I don't want to allow things outside of me for as much as I can control, because the only thing you can really control is your response. You can't control the things that are going on around you. And more, I'm telling you, 2019 was a huge year for me, because it actually, it made me kind of stop and say, what do I value? What are my values?
Right.
What is it that makes me who I am? No, I'm not going to listen to any of the noise around me. I need to remember who I am, why I'm here, and what value I can add, and what about that is truly me. And I have to stop sometimes when there's a lot of noise around me and say, whoa, girl, stop.
Right.
All right, let's take a minute. Let's take a minute. don't feel bad about it, because you're going to be a better person on the other side of that 2 minutes, that 5 minutes, that 2 weeks, like whatever it is. Like permission to unplug, permission to tell yourself, you know what? And it's funny because in client service, you tend to be a people pleaser.
Yeah.
And so you're always trying to make sure everybody else is happy.
So
and
true.
I have had to train myself, to physically train myself, and it's a work in progress. I am in no way a Jedi master at this. I've had to train myself to say, wait a minute, okay, you need a minute. Okay, stop, and put these types of things into practice. You know, I mean, it's practicing giving myself permission, but knowing that it is not an option. It is absolutely a necessity.
No, absolutely. And you're doing what I think all true experts are supposed to do. You know that you're finding new ways to do it when your brain is like, saying stop it isn't working anymore. So now you're like, wait a minute,
Yep.
you know, like just changing your language so that your body, your brain, your mind, and your spirit can be disrupted when it needs to be disrupted, so you can kind of create a new pathway and not fall into old patterns. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. Like I tell people all the time, like I'm the #1 balance and relationship advisor in the world, but you know why? It's because I'm always freaking practicing balance. Like that's why. Like it's a top of mind, keep me up in the middle of the night. How can I do it better? How can I do it differently? How can I do it smarter? How can I do it more efficiently? It's not because I came out the womb with this perfect way of managing my time and creating priorities. I had to execute by re-executing, by failing forward and constantly understanding that I'm imperfect and I'm imperfectly amazing at the same time. You know what I mean? So
you're so good. I hear your voice in my head more often than you realize. I really, really do. I really do. It's incredibly helpful.
As long as you don't hear me during your private time when you with your man, because that's a different conversation.
Girl, no. That is totally private time.
You know I'm silly,
and
Kirsten.
That would change the whole dynamic of that particular moment too.
Exactly.
That would be a little strange. That'd be like a movie or something.
Right, like your work is coming home with you too much. I don't like it. No, I love you, Kirsten, so much. How can people connect with you?
The best way to connect with me, I'm you know, for better or for worse, we're always on, right? So the best way for people to connect with me is through email, and that's Toler@Friedman.com.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. You have been amazing, incredible, energetic, just transparent and authentic, just like I expected, and gave the listeners a little bit more than I could have imagined. So I'm so grateful for you carving out this time and just being here, showing up and showing out as you always do.
I'm grateful for the opportunity. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this for a while. This really means a lot. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Woo! Balance Boldly listeners, was Kirsten not just so refreshing and so amazing and such a phenomenal way to really like kickstart all of the newness that you need to be in as we roll forward with 2020? Like everything she talked about is just so relatable on so many levels, from the transitions and the pivots and rediscovering what works, looking at what isn't fitting, and finding new ways to create your own balance and create your own joy by being all in what you deem is the most important for your values. I love her so much. I love her so much. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful she was here.
I'm sending you a virtual hug.
Oh, I'm receiving right now. I'm like totally receiving. I just thank you so much. And I thank you guys for showing up and listening and tuning in. As always, if you like what you hear on the Balance Boldly for Ambitious Women in Business and a Few Brave Men podcast, make sure you subscribe, rate, and share so we can help ensure that the other ambitiously bold and brave have access to these valuable life, love, and business balance tools. As always, if you need to connect with me, just go on Ask Naketa everywhere. IG, Twitter, Facebook, you name it, I'm there. And just follow, DM me your questions. Let me know what you want to talk about. And as we roll into our Thursdays with the Let's Talk Intimacy live stream, don't be shy. Submit your questions. If you want to do it anonymously, just email me at asknaketa@bigpro.com and just put in there, don't share my name, share my city, share my height, share something else, but just don't tell people who I am. And ask the question, because we want to make sure that we can really help you amplify intimacy, both personally and professionally. So in the interim, I want you to go Create your balance and create your joy. But remember, people, do it boldly. Thank you for listening.